Welcome to the ScreenCrush Break Room. I'm Ryan Airy, and let's talk about the ending of Loki.
Hey y'all!
Oh man, so many fan theories are right, and proud we are of all of you. So let's talk about the ending of Loki Season 1, what it means for the MCU going forward, and that incredible twist ending. So I'm going to talk about a few things that we covered in our Easter egg video, but I'm going to try not to overlap too much. First, Jonathan Majors appears as He Who Remains, the secret creator of the TVA. This is after it's already been announced that he would play the villain Kang the Conqueror in Ant-Man and the Wasp 3. Presumably, this kind of goofball, insane version of Kang is just one variation, and the Kang that we see in Quantumania will be more of a badass.
Kang does not give up, primitive.
Very brief overview of Kang. He's a time-traveling scientist from the future who attempts to conquer all of time. In the comics, every time he uses time travel, he creates an alternate self. So there are actually multiple Kangs, including an older version of himself named Immortus, basically He Who Remains in Loki. He claims that he is protecting the timeline from his alternate evil self. Now, this answers a lot of questions. All through the series, you guys have been asking me how there could be variants if there's just one sacred timeline. So I think that what we're seeing here is that there can be variations and other timelines as long as they don't create an evil version of Kang. So think of the sacred timeline as a rope, and each thread is a smaller timeline woven into the whole. A nexus event is like a fray in the rope. Remember how when Loki and Sylvie touched, it made a huge spike?
You ever seen a branch like that?
This is because the two of them joining forces will bring them to the end of time, where Sylvie will kill He Who Remains and bring about the rise of Kang. Now, one of the biggest clues about this episode is in one of its first sound bites.
We think of time as a one-way motion. We think of time as a one-way motion.
This is a quote by philosopher Alan Watts. So to really dive into this ending and what it means for the MCU and what it means philosophically, I've got to talk about the ideas of determinism and causality. So this line is from a lecture of Watts's called Time and the Way It Changes, where he argues that our perception of time is flawed. He says that we see events like we're watching a snake crawl past a fence, and we can only see one small part of the snake at a time. Because we see the head first, we could assume that the head created the tail, just like we assumed that the past created the present. Watts argues that all events are just part of the same events, that it's all happening at once, more like water swirling in a whirlpool. This is how the TVA and He Who Remains see time, as simply one big event that's happening right in front of them all at once. Now, this is also symbolized by the flat disk that displays events in the past, that is also a metaphor for the flat circle theory of time. Basically, that all events are pre-written, and fourth-dimensional beings would see time as a flat circle of a film reel and not as the film strip itself. This is what makes the ending of this show so fascinating. Sylvie and Loki break into the tower, believing that they have escaped the structure of the sacred timeline.
We write our own destiny now.
Then He Who Remains tells them,
I already know what's going to happen.
This comes down to determinism, the idea that all events have a predetermined outcome and are not sequential. In fact, Sylvie's distrust of Loki,
What was I thinking, trusting you?
was actually seated here.
Sylvie!
You think you can trust this guy?
Which also raises the question, did Sylvie act of her own free will, or was she nudged in this direction?
Don't worry about the vase.
What vase?
Would you still have broken it if I hadn't said anything?
Whenever there's a big Marvel event like Loki, I start researching for it weeks in advance, not just reading comics. I mean, for Loki, I wanted to study books on time travel, but I didn't have time to listen to an entire audiobook. So I'm glad that I found Blinkist, the sponsor of this week's video. With Blinkist, instead of finding the time to read the whole book, I can listen to all of its highlights in just 15 minutes. For instance, the book Time Travel, A History, goes all the way back to ancient Greek prophecies and H.G. Wells, while explaining all of the different time paradoxes that create the variant timelines like we see in the MCU. And there's also Physics of the Impossible, which I listened to while taking a walk with Doug. This book talks about how sci-fi concepts like force fields and time travel are theoretically possible. Blinkist is a great way to fit reading into your life because it lets you learn and improve yourself in those tiny cracks of time between your day. They have more than 3,000 nonfiction books and more than 14 million users. It's also a great way to try out a book and see if you want to listen to the entire audiobook. Premium subscribers get special membership pricing, up to 65% off the regular retail price for full audiobooks. So we have a special deal for you. The first 100 people to click the link in the description are going to get unlimited access for 1 week to try it out. You'll also get 25% off if you want the full membership. So try Blinkist today. Now, the reason I'm talking about all of this philosophical stuff is because it's the key to understanding this ending. There are two conflicting views of the universe. One where Immortus is able to control all the timelines and keep himself in check, essentially making him master of reality. But on the other hand, you have free will, the variance and the idea that individuals can make decisions that will change the world. So there's a point in the episode where Immortus no longer knows what's going to happen.
We just crossed the threshold. I knew everything up to a certain point, and that point was about 7, 8, 9, 10 seconds ago.
This is because this castle exists near the end of time, and the timeline actually continues on a little ways past this point. Now, once events do pass that point, it's like the characters have reached the page of a book that hasn't been written yet. For the first time in the entire series, someone is able to display free will. So the show is asking, was Kang always going to become Kang because it was predetermined?
That's the proper flow of time, and it happens again and again and again because it's supposed to, because it has to.
Or was this all the result of Sylvie's chaotic decision? And here's the big question. Has this already happened and it's just all happening again? Immortus explains the multiversal war.
Some of us, new worlds meant only one thing, new lands to be conquered. The peace between realities erupted into all-out war, each variant fighting to preserve their universe and annihilate the others.
And the end result of that war was him winning, creating the TVA, and the TVA set Sylvie on a path to kill the Timekeepers, which results in Kang coming to power, which results in a multiversal war, and so it goes. Or, as Immortus puts it,
start another multiversal war, and I just end up right back here anyways.
Loki's story in Norse mythology and in the MCU is defined by loops, and here we find ourselves in another loop.
I'm in a loop. I'm caught in a time loop.
Remember Immortus' last words.
See you soon.
This heavily implies that he has gone through this before. An infinite number of Sylvies has killed him an infinite number of times because they are all trapped in a circle.
More like a freaky circle.
When he dies, he's even framed by a circle. In our Easter egg video, we pointed out that this is actually a triskelion, an ancient symbol of life, death, and rebirth. So as he dies, events outside are occurring to make him reborn as Kang the Conqueror. It even makes you think about the cracks in the Citadel, the broken statue below. Were those damaged from the multiversal war that's already happened? Is this castle just the center of a battle that's been happening billions and billions and billions of times? No wonder this version of Kang seems so insane.
No.
Outside, we see timelines branching out of control as the multiverse is reborn. Then we cut to Mobius and C-15 watching the timeline spread out of control.
No turning back now.
Who said anything about turning back?
Very interesting choice of words, turn back, because it implies turning back time or rewriting events, which is actually about to happen. Loki reappears in the screening room, bringing him full circle to the first episode when he had his emotional breakthrough.
I don't enjoy hurting people.
At some point, while he's in here, missing Sylvie and feeling sorry for himself, reality is actually being rewritten all around him. When he finds Mobius and C-15, they're saying,
Does he want us to just let them all branch?
Now this is interesting. For one thing, C-15 specifically says him, meaning that the TVA know that they're working for Kang and Kang alone. But also, Kang wants the timeline to branch. Maybe because, as it branches, it's creating new realities for him to conquer. These branching timelines will also create new Kangs, similar to the Council of the Kangs from the comics. Now one of these branches will create Immortus, who will end the multiversal war, create the TVA, and will start all of this over again. Now we also know why Loki and Sylvie touching was such an alarming Nexus event.
You ever seen a branch like that?
No.
It turns out that the two of them create the Rise of Kang, the ultimate Nexus event. Then Mobius says,
What are you talking about? Who are you? What's your name?
Now Mobius doesn't even recognize him as a variant of Loki. Now this could be because in this new reality, Loki never existed. But I think it's more than likely that this is because Lokis are no longer a problem. Kang wants the timelines to branch. He wants multiple realities to rule. So Lokis are actually helping him accomplish this goal. Now a lot of you on Twitter have been asking me why the MCU all of a sudden changed its time travel rules to Back to the Future rules. But here's what that means. In Endgame, it was established that time traveling does not change your past, it just creates a branch in time.
If you travel to the past, that past becomes your future, and your former present becomes the past, which can't now be changed by your new future.
Meaning that you can never cause yourself to cease to exist like Marty McFly almost did.
So Back to the Future is a bunch of bullshit?
Now, if that's true, then why has the TVA changed to show a statue of Kang instead of the Timekeepers? Well, one explanation is that Loki could have just ended up in an alternate reality, but
I don't think so.
the reason this has changed is that the ruler of the TVA is dead. He ruled over all of time, from a place where one timeline was preserved. Now, once he dies, it creates a power vacuum, and this new version, Kang the Conqueror, steps in to fill the void. This could also explain where Ravonna goes.
Where are you gonna go?
In search of free will.
The free will she's referring to isn't a concept, it's a person. Remember earlier, Miss Minutes told her,
"This isn't what I asked for."
I know, but he thinks this'll be more useful.
Who?
So there is definitely something else going on here. I think that some alternate version of Kang has been pulling the strings behind Miss Minutes all along. Now, in Ant-Man and the Wasp, in the quantum realm, we saw a small glimpse of a city in a bubble here that looks an awful lot like Kang's city of Chronopolis in the comics. So it's possible that the most evil version of Kang has been hiding out in the quantum realm, a place maybe the TVA can't reach because it exists outside of time. And Ravonna, who is Kang's lover in the comics, has left to go find him. So what does this mean for the future of the MCU, with an evil despot controlling all of time with Ravonna Renslayer by his side? Well, let's see. Alfred Molina confirmed that he is in Spider-Man No Way Home as Dr. Octopus. There's also rumors of other Spider-Man actors appearing in that film, meaning that the multiverse that's created here will spill over into that movie and then into Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. So the multiverse is coming to the MCU, which probably means that another multiversal war is coming, part of that cycle that I mentioned earlier. A multiversal war could mean an adaptation of the newest Secret Wars comics, where various Marvel characters from several realities are placed on the same planet and battle it out. Now, this could also give us a chance to introduce Fox X-Men characters to the MCU, like Deadpool or Wolverine, or even animated heroes like the spectacular Spider-Ham.
I just washed my hands. That's why they're wet. No other reason.
Maybe they'll bring in all of Disney IP and we'll finally get what we really want, to see Jar Jar crushed by a truck. But that's just what I think about the ending. Let me know your thoughts and theories down in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy. What did you think of the ending? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, guys, please subscribe. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.